So I was listening to Emma Chamberlain's podcast, an episode titled Quality Over Quantity, and it was nice. She made some good points. It's better to have 3 trustworthy friends than 10 mediocre fake ones. It's better to build a wardrobe of your favorite pieces rather than buying cheap Shein trends and throwing them away a month later. Cool, Emma. Thanks for helping me live life. But at the end, this part came up.
Somebody said, is there a situation where quality over quantity does not apply? I thought about this for a really long time. And if I'm being honest, I think it might apply to just about everything in life. I don't think that there's one thing that it doesn't apply to. And if I'm wrong about that, please let me know, because I'm curious to hear if there's an objection to this, but I really do think that it applies to just about everything.
But there is one objection, though. The one situation I rarely hear anyone talk about where quantity beats quality. Skills. This concept was first introduced to me in a Cool War answer. It told the story of a bright yet disappointed student. To get into the college of his dreams, he had to get into the top 98th percentile on the entrance exam. Sadly, he got his results back and he only got a 91 in science and a 92 in English. But surprisingly, a couple days later, he's notified that he got accepted. It turns out that most students were either very good at science or very good at English, but kind of bad at the other. By being well-rounded in both, as opposed to being the best in one, he made it into the top 2% of students. Interesting concept. And I was only reminded of again this summer. While strolling past the business section in my local Barnes & Noble, Scott Adams, the famous cartoonist's book, caught my eye, filled with general advice on life, failure, and success. In the 20th chapter, he proposes this formula. Good plus good is greater than excellent when it comes to skills. In other words, instead of trying to be the best in one thing, become relatively proficient in a number of them. So I read this and I found it pretty counterintuitive. Like, success in my mind meant that you had been training all your life to become the best. Just look at all those Olympian athletes. Look at the piano prodigies with 5 million views, but they're 5-year-olds. Success means that you have become the best. You're indispensable. So what I should do now is pour all my energies into becoming the best in one thing. And eventually, it'll work out, right? Well, sure, you could. But Scott argues that this isn't the only path to success. That one is probably the hardest anyway. Humans aren't monochromic beings. We have more than one interest. It sounds like hell to sacrifice your life to one thing. And personally, I don't have the fucking patience to repeat the same motions over and over all day. It's much easier for people like us to become good at multiple skills rather than trying to be the best in one. And it's better if you think about it. Would you rather hire an engineer who's, the smartest, top of his class? Or would you rather hire just one that's just okay, but he has the people skills to communicate and persuade and make an actual impact on the company? When it comes to skills, it's quantity over quality. History is littered with examples of this, if you look. Leonardo da Vinci was an engineer, a theorist, an architect, painter, sculptor, whatever. Vincent van Gogh had tried out 5 separate careers before even picking up a paintbrush at the age of 27. But it's funny, because probably the best modern example of this phenomenon is Emma Chamberlain herself. People love her, myself included. She's cool. She's funny. She has aesthetic Instagram, cute outfits, a coffee company, and a relaxing podcast. But it's not like she's world class in any of these pursuits specifically. I mean, they're all amazing. But there's better podcasts, cooler Instagrams, funnier people, bigger coffee companies, swaggier YouTube. But what makes Emma unique is the combination of all of them together. Quantity over quality makes her so much more of an interesting personality, in my opinion. And I got this, but I never really understood the reasoning why until I picked up the highly recommended book Range by David Epstein. He argues, I forgot. To sum it up, too much narrow specialization is dangerous. Putting too much time into one pursuit alone isn't beneficial. I mean, perhaps there are some cases in which it makes sense. Golf, for example, where the feedback is immediate and accurate. You hit a ball, it's either too far or too close. You observe the result, and you're able to perfect your technique accordingly. Spend hours doing that, perfecting your technique little by little, and eventually, you're going to start winning competitions. But that's a poor model of most things humans want to learn. Life, as Epstein calls it, is a wicked learning environment where nobody really tells you the rules and the outcomes aren't always clear. He relates the story of a famous New York diagnostician who was an expert in detecting typhoid fever by using a special test in which he felt the patient's tongue with his hands. Sure enough, time and time again, every single patient he checked turned out positive for the fever. But repeated success taught him the worst lesson possible, as he continued to unknowingly transmit a disease to perfectly healthy people. Experience can backfire, and spending too much time in one field can make you lose perspective. On the other hand, groundbreaking innovation usually comes from drawing on multiple spheres of knowledge. Claude Shannon, back in the early 20th century, had launched the information age by taking logic in the philosophy field that was already around for 80 years and applying it at his summer internship at AT&T, which was assigning ones and zeros to true and false statements. Steve Jobs had famously cited his calligraphy class as helping him build the Apple typeface years later. Even Scott Adams noted how his 16 years working in corporate America helped him write the comic Dilbert. I mean, obviously it gave him content because the comic is about the mediocrity of the workplace, but it also gave him advantages over his competitors. His previous job had introduced him to the World Wide Web, only a geeky thing back in the early 90s, and Dilbert became the first comic to run free on the internet, generating way more exposure and boosting newspaper sales. Going back to Epstein, our greatest strength is the exact opposite of neurospecialization. It is the ability to integrate broadly. In conclusion, when it comes to skills, it's quantity over quality. So go out there, explore whatever piques your interest. Don't limit yourself. Have range in your life and go do something worthwhile. Thanks for watching.